poor performing drivers. Firstly, what does that even mean? And rather than just ignore them, well, let's start getting excited about them. Not bad, a poor performing driver. So through this video, let's talk about what makes these, well, poor performing. Why that's going to be a huge advantage for you golfers that want to get the most for your money. And ultimately explain why these drivers will go just as far as, well, let's say the popular ones. Every year we get new reviews, new lists of the best performing drivers, whether that's distance, forgiveness, sound, you name it. So before I convince you to try and find your own poor performing driver to get as a bargain, let's dissect those three elements. Everyone wants distance and the most they can get. And nothing was more apparent than the Stealth last year, promoting that carbon face to essentially allow weight to go other places and ultimately trying to get you longer drives. And in this wonderful game that we call golf, there are rules. And with those rules, no matter what you make a driver face out of, it's still limited to the amount of ball speed it can give you for the amount of club head speed you produce. And because those limits have been reached by so many manufacturers for so long, it means if a driver has been rated as a bad performer, it won't be due to the distance, or let's say the ball speed to club head speed ratio factor. Which is great news for you guys, because it means you can choose multiple different drivers from multiple different years and brands, knowing full well the ball speed will be as efficient with that one as, well, let's say a high rated driver. So then we move on to the forgiving element. Some drivers are rated more forgiving than others, and to be honest, in 2023 there's tons of great forgiving drivers out there. I've got good news, because every manufacturer produces a more forgiving head type, i.e. weight as far back as it possibly can, to a more player driver where you have more control or more adjustability in the head type. But here's the second bit of good news, because whether a model is being rated as super forgiving, let's say the TSI range or the Ping G400 for example, it doesn't mean that the less rated models of that year don't produce forgiving types as well. This is the LS, but the LTDX came in the LS Max. And because the whole model itself didn't necessarily take the world by storm in 2022, it well means you can now get a poor performing driver that isn't popular and hasn't been reviewed as high as, let's say, the Rogue ST or the TaylorMade Stealth last year, at a fraction of the price. And if you do want a forgiving head type, well, there's head types out there for you as well. I have absolutely smoked that. And that's one of the reasons why I want you to get excited about poor performing drivers. I want you to take the word poor performing and put underrated next to it. Or let's say the ones that have high ratings as overrated, because you know you're going to get the same amount of distance from ball speed to club head speed ratio. You know you can choose a more forgiving head style if that's something that you're looking for. But because it didn't grab the headlines that year, well, you're going to find a very nice looking driver for a fraction of the cost. Another great example of this is the Callaway Epic Speed. £499 when it came out a couple of years ago, but you can get it for a fraction of the price nowadays. The Max LS version is going to give you the forgiveness if that's something that you're really after, and it's from one of the biggest manufacturers in the world. And ultimately, when all these reviews happen from the big boys and everyone has to decide which one is the best, it's extremely difficult because they are all as good as each other, yet one or two will come out on top, and the rest of them are, well, just left to the wayside. Not only brand new, but second hand. And that's what I want you guys to take advantage of, because there's some serious kit out there for not that much money. One surefire way to grab a bargain is sound. Sound plays a massive part in this game, and ultimately this driver here is super forgiving and will produce the same level of ball speed to club head speed ratio. Like this, for example, a lot of people won't want it because of the sound, And if that's something that really doesn't bother you, again, you're going to grab an outrageous driver that goes as far, is as forgiving, but at a fraction of the price. You just might have to warn your new playing partners to cover their ears, however. And ultimately, that's why I love this thing right here, or the older model that I said go and get £130 when PXG was selling them off. You're getting outrageous shafts, which, let's be honest, would cost you £70, £80 by themselves. And we know full well the ball's going to come off this face as fast as anything else on the market. And typically, when we look at cheaper products, we feel like they're inferior, and there will be stuff with this driver that's not as good as some of the top range drivers. All I want you to understand is that when it comes to ball speed off the club face, there is zero difference. Which brings me on to the fourth performing aspect, marketing. Some brands are better at marketing than the others, and to be honest, that's probably due to the amount of money that they put in it. We see tour players, we see influencers, we see tons of reviews of some products, which always drives up the demand for the product, not only brand new, but also second hand, meaning that other models that get left to the wayside, especially when it comes to the second-hand market, means there's just not that much uptake, which is great news for me and you. Realistically, there isn't such a thing as a poor performing driver when all the different types and models and brands are so close within each other. The only poor performance that I've witnessed and seen over the last couple of years is some of the ones that don't perform that well in the second-hand market because there just isn't that much hype or popularity over that particular head, which in the long term is great news for you guys. All I would say is if you see a bad review on a particular driver, get relatively excited because you're going to be able to buy that thing in a year or so for hardly anything. Guys, if you like this video, please subscribe, leave this video a like, and you might want to see how this room had been built within a month.